Hi, I'm Kat and today I have for you a true crime case, a word in Romanian, and I will also be doing my makeup at the same time. So, the word for today is bunică. 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 Well done guys, you just said grandmother. Aiyana Monet Stanley Jones, born on July 20th, 2002, died on May 16, 2010. She was a 7-year-old beautiful girl from Detroit's East Side, the US. Aiyana was actually asleep on her sofa in the downstairs flat of the duplex building in Detroit. Her grandmother was sleeping next to her. In all the silence, Mertilla Jones, the grandmother, hears commotion outside and then she hears sudden banging and officers shouting at the door, police. And then, bang, a stun grenade is thrown through the front window. Mertilla, scared, she gets down on the floor and she realizes that Aiyana's blanket is on fire. At the same time, the SWAT team gets inside, specifically Joseph Weekley, with his shield and his gun pointing straight in the direction of Aiyana's head. Mertilla is trying to get to Aiyana because of the blanket on fire, but suddenly there is a gunshot. Joseph shot Aiyana in the head. Mertilla Jones just witnessed the horrifying killing of her precious little granddaughter. Some horrific images that she will never be able to get out of her head. She saw blood gushing out of Aiyana's mouth as she passed away. She said, quote, "I seen the light leave out of her eyes and the blood started gushing out her mouth and she was dead." End of quote. Now, I need to give you a bit of context as to how exactly we got to this point. On May 14, 2010, Southeastern High School senior Jaron Blake was shot and killed near the intersection of Mack and Benito streets on Detroit's east side. By the end of the following day, on 15th of May, police identified Chauncey Owens as a suspect in Jaron's death and they got a warrant to search 4054 Lilliebridge Street where Chauncey Owens was believed to be hiding. The building was a duplex. Chauncey's girlfriend, LaCrystal Saunders, lived in the upstairs apartment while her mother and Aiyana Jones's grandmother, Mertilla Jones, lived in the downstairs apartment. At the time of the incident, Aiyana Jones was asleep on the couch in the front room of the downstairs apartment. Chauncey Owens was in the upstairs apartment. Aiyana Jones was the daughter of Charles Jones and Dominica Stanley. She was one of 3 children of the couple and she had 4 half-siblings. Now, it can get a bit confusing, I know, but I hope that it will kind of make sense later on. An A&E reality TV crew was accompanying the police special response team, the SWAT team, to gather footage for the show called The First 48. Joseph Weekley had been featured on another A&E police reality show called Detroit SWAT. 2 weeks before the incident, a Detroit police officer had been killed in the line of duty while attempting to arrest a suspect. The explosion and the shooting was filmed by the camera crew for another episode of the A&E police reality show. And apparently the order for filming came from the top. Prosecutor Robert Moran later told the news that Alison Howard, the reality show producer, actually sold the footage for $2,500 after the fatal raid, and investigators blamed her for delaying and obstructing the investigation. The footage was not supposed to be seen by a third party whilst the investigation was ongoing. This raid was supposed to detain Chauncey Owens, the boyfriend of Aiyana's aunt, LaCrystal, both of whom lived in the top unit or the upstairs unit of the same building. Chauncey Owens had been charged for shooting the 17-year-old Jaron Blake after they got into an argument in front of a party store. Okay, so first of all, I think that the reason why Joseph Weekley acted the way that he did was to put on a show for the camera using the flash grenade when it really wasn't necessary. There was no regard for those people inside the building when the SWAT team acted the way that they did. Did they even know that, you know, there was a child inside? I mean, really, for the sake of the child, you should not just get into people's houses like that. You're not in a war where it's either you or the enemy. This was hardly a high-profile case, and I think that police officers could have possibly dealt with the arrest without the need for all these kind of extra show. But what was the team trying to show? Was it for the cameras? I'm wondering, by the use of that flash grenade, did that order come from the top as well? Maybe, you know, to give more action to the show, you know. I can see someone kind of over the phone saying, oh, use that grenade as well, because, you know, viewers will be so hooked on it. It's a reality show in the end, right? This is what their actions kind of make me feel like. And as far as I understand, these flash grenades are used mostly for hostage rescue. And anyway, I know that I asked already, but why was the SWAT team sent to arrest an individual? Does it usually work like that? And according to Wikipedia, a stun grenade, also known as a flash grenade, flashbang, thunder flash, or sound bomb, is a less lethal explosive device used to temporarily disorient an enemy's senses. It's designed to produce a blinding flash of light and an intensely loud bang. The flash momentarily activates all photoreceptor cells in the eye, blinding it for approximately 5 seconds. Afterward, victims perceive an after image which impairs their aim. The volume of the detonation also causes temporary deafness in the victim and also disturbs the fluid in the ear, causing a loss of balance. Despite the non-lethal intentions behind the grenade, the resulting blast still has the ability to cause injuries, and the heat created has been known to ignite flammable materials. Joseph Weekley shot Aiyana Jones in the head with his MP5 submachine gun, and he stated that a woman inside grabbed my gun. It fired. The bullet hit a child. This is what he said to his sergeant after the shot was fired. According to press reports, police were on the scene by 12:40 a.m. on Sunday, May 16th. Trying to distract the occupants, police fired the flash grenade through the front window of the lower apartment where Aiyana Jones was sleeping. But this was 12 o'clock in the night. So another question that really I have is, why would they try to, you know, distract someone at that hour? I mean, it was late at night. Usually people sleep at that time. Officer Weekley claimed that the flash grenade blinded his view of the person on the couch in the living room downstairs, namely Aiyana. Police officers, bystanders, and residents of the home disagreed about the events that followed. According to reports, seconds after entering the house, Officer Weekley fired the fatal shot. He pushed his way inside, protected by a ballistic shield. He claimed that Aiyana Jones's paternal grandmother Mertilla tried to slap his MP5 submachine gun, causing it to fire. The bullet struck Aiyana, killing her. But Mertilla Jones said that she reached for her granddaughter when the grenade came through the window, and she wasn't reaching for the officer's gun because the flash grenade actually set Aiyana on fire. She said that she made absolutely no contact with any officers. And if we are to take into account the Wikipedia definition of a flash grenade, namely, the heat created has been known to ignite flammable materials, I would say that Mertilla's account is much more credible than the officer's account. So police then arrest Mertilla, the grandmother. They take her down to the station, test her for drugs and gunpowder, and later release her. So we need to get this right. It's not enough that Mertilla was scared to death. She also witnessed her granddaughter's shooting, but she's also being arrested now. I mean, sometimes police don't even treat people like human beings anymore. It's very saddening and frustrating to see some police with power thinking of themselves, you know, like gods, like they are above everybody else and they can do as they wish because they just won't be held responsible. Chauncey Owens, the suspect who the raid was initially intended for, to apprehend and arrest, and the boyfriend of Aiyana's aunt, La Crystal, was actually found in the upper floor apartment of the duplex, and he surrendered without any incident. After more than 1 year of internal and federal investigation, on October the 4th, 2011, a grand jury indicted Joseph Weekley on involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment with a gun. In his first trial, he admits, "It's my gun that shot and killed a 7-year-old girl." So he admits that his gun killed Aiyana.
Raid video never publicly released shows the moments leading up to the death of 7-year-old Aiyana Stanley Jones. Police officer Joseph Weekley is on trial for involuntary manslaughter.
The defense says the movements of Aiyana's grandmother caused Officer Weekley to accidentally pull the trigger. 7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig is outside the courtroom this afternoon. Kim, today's video critical to the prosecution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll first hear on that video, officers yell police, then the stun grenade breaks the glass. You'll actually hear the detonation of that stun grenade, and you'll see the flash. And about maybe 2 to 3 seconds later, you'll hear the gunshot. It's the moment 7-year-old Aiyana Stanley Jones is fatally shot, and not even Officer Joseph Weekley's defense attorney denies it was Weekley who pulled the trigger. This video of the raid and the moments leading up to it were filmed by a camera crew from the reality TV show The First 48. Members of the Detroit Police Special Response Team were helping homicide investigators arrest Chauncey Owens, suspected of gunning down 17-year-old Jerrian Blake just 2 days earlier.
Today we got a Crime Stopper tip on Chauncey Owens at the Lily Bridge address. Put him in a photo array. 2 independent witnesses picked him out.
Is it loud?
Yes.
Is it chaotic?
Yes.
Homicide investigator LaTanya Brooks on the stand, recalling the moments after the raid. She was detaining one man on the ground outside the house on Lily Bridge and didn't realize anyone had been shot.
When the gentleman was on the ground said that they shot Aiyana, I told him, I said, nobody shot Aiyana.
Prosecutors say Joseph Weekley was grossly negligent when he pulled the trigger on his submachine gun, killing Aiyana just seconds after entering the house. Weekley's defense is that Aiyana's grandmother caused him to pull the trigger when she somehow hit Weekley's gun. And the defense tried to show that the reality TV crew added unnecessary pressure to Detroit police when the higher-ups began allowing them to tag along.
You would never, ever have allowed anybody to come with cameras while you went about your work and things that we saw on that screen. True?
I wouldn't write true.
How did you feel about it personally?
Yeah, they were nice enough people, but it was very intrusive, I felt, when you're investigating murder scenes.
Even though his first trial was due in October, it was eventually scheduled for June 2013, but this resulted in a deadlocked jury. Wayne County Circuit Judge Cynthia Gray Hathaway presided over the case. Aiyana's case would be the longest presiding case that Hathaway had in more than 20 years of being on the bench. In my opinion, the verdict should have been pretty clear. Joseph even admits to it, but it didn't happen. Another trial was scheduled for December 2013, but it actually began in September 2014. Joseph was charged with involuntary manslaughter and negligent firing of a weapon causing death. On the second day of trial, 24th of September 2014, La Crystal Sanders, living on the top floor of the house where Aiyana died, testified. La Crystal was Aiyana Jones's paternal aunt, the girlfriend of Chauncey Owens, and the daughter of Mertilla Jones. While La Crystal was on the stand, Judge Cynthia Hathaway told her that she was being disrespectful. Aiyana's mother, Dominica Stanley, and paternal grandmother, Mertilla, also testified, and both were mentioned as having emotional outbursts. After the grandmother's outburst, the judge ordered the jury out of the room, and the grandmother was escorted from the courtroom screaming. Because of Mertilla Jones's outburst, the judge stopped the trial until September 29.
Aiyana's mother breaks down on the stand.
I can't do this.
Stealing breaking testimony from a mother about her daughter's death.
Detroit police officer Joseph Weekley is on trial for involuntary manslaughter, accused of killing 7-year-old Aiyana Stanley Jones when police stormed the home in search of a murder suspect.
7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig is live with more on the emotional first day of that trial. Kim?
And Jeff and Joanne, it certainly was for the mother, at least this morning when she was on the stand. She was so emotional they actually needed to give her a break. But this afternoon when she returned to the stand, she seemed annoyed, even with prosecutors.
What awoke you that morning?
Mertilla screaming.
First on the stand for the prosecution was the mother of 7-year-old Aiyana Jones, who was sleeping around 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday when Detroit Police Special Response Team raided the home on Lillibridge. First came the stun grenade to take everyone in the house off guard. Seconds later, a single gunshot from Officer Joseph Weekley's MP5 submachine gun. Aiyana's grandmother was heard screaming.
They said they killed Aiyana. I can't do this.
Stanley, do you need a break?
Yes.
Full of emotion, Aiyana's mother was given a break, but it was just before she even took the stand that the defense told the jury that the killing of Aiyana Jones was an accident.
Aiyana Stanley Jones was killed in an accident. It doesn't mean Officer Weekley didn't pull the trigger. Of course he pulled the trigger. You don't need the state police person to tell you that. The gun didn't go off by itself.
In his opening statement to the jury, Joseph Weekley's attorney, Steve Fishman, blamed Aiyana's grandmother, Mertilla Jones, for the fatal gunshot.
Mertilla Jones, reacting probably to the flashbang, which is what they call this diversionary device, reached down and she hit the gun. So he pulls back and his hand hits the trigger and the gun discharges. There's no doubt about that. There's not going to be a dispute about that. But that's not gross negligence. And that's not careless and reckless. What that is that's not guilty.
But prosecutors say no one grabbed Weekley's gun or struggled with him.
3 seconds after the flash grenade detonates, his gun goes off. And that's when the fatal shot is fired.
Detroit police raided the house that morning because they were looking for this man, Chauncey Owens, suspected of gunning down 17-year-old Jerrian Blake just 2 days earlier.
And I know that you have a lot of victims, and I know you try to treat every case the same, but this particular case, because of the nature of the killing, kind of got under your skin a little. Would that be safe to say?
Yes.
Because you've got, at least from what you knew, you got a high school kid really essentially minding his own business who gets murdered by a grown adult.
In broad daylight on a major street, yes.
When Aiyana's mother returned to the stand this afternoon, Weekley's defense attorney suggested that she knew there was a potential killer in the house where she and her daughter were sleeping.
All right, it's your testimony that at no time on Friday, May 14th, did you hear anybody in the neighborhood, anybody in the house, anybody say anything about the fact that a high school boy had been shot in front of the party store?
No.
Explosive testimony today from the grandmother of Aiyana Jones. She's the one defense attorneys say hit Officer Weekley's gun during a raid, causing him to fire it and kill little 7-year-old Aiyana.
But her emotional outburst today caused the judge to halt the trial. 7 Action News reporter Anu Prakash joins us live in the newsroom today with the latest. Anu?
Well, Jeff, it was testimony that was really tough to listen to. This grandmother says Officer Weekley fired instantly the moment he entered that house.
I'm laying there screaming, asking somebody to help my granddaughter, because he just shot her in the head. And he wouldn't even help her. They turned on the light and seen that she had been shot and carried out the house. Oh, man. Oh, my God. Oh, Jesus.
A highly emotional Mertilla Jones wails on the witness stand this afternoon during the retrial of Detroit police officer Joseph Weekley. He's accused of involuntary manslaughter in the death of Jones's 7-year-old granddaughter, Aiyana. It happened in May of 2010 during a raid on a Detroit home as police were searching for a murder suspect. Jones says she was on one end of the couch and Aiyana was sleeping on the other end of the couch closest to the front door when Weekley entered first and instantly fired his gun, hitting Aiyana in the head, killing her.
Why you do it? Please tell me why you come in my house like that.
Weekley's defense has been that Jones lunged at him and hit his gun, causing him to accidentally pull the trigger. Listen as she defended herself and lashed out at Officer Weekley.
You killed my grandbaby. You killed her and you try to blame me. You know I never touched you, Mr. Weekley. You know I never touched you. You know you're wrong. She was only 7 years old. She was only a baby, man. She was sleeping.
Weekley sat stone-faced, and within moments of that outburst, Jones was escorted off the witness stand. On her way out of the courtroom, she continued to shout at Weekley.
I get no sleep. The flashbacks, I wouldn't wish them on nobody in the world, not even you.
It was so intense in that courtroom. Now, after that, the judge reminded the jury that they are not to decide this case based on sympathy or emotion. Now, because of what happened today, she said they will resume the trial on Monday in hopes of giving them all time to soothe some of those emotions.
Now, from my point of view, I think that it was only natural for the grandmother to react, and for her reaction, I'm not sure that any other person would react differently. She had to stay there on the chair, on stand, testifying, whilst the Aiyana Jones's killer was right there in front of her. It's not a good sight to be looking at, and quite honestly, her reaction, in my opinion, was more than reasonable and justified. What was not justified, however, was his straight face throughout the whole testimony. I know that your lawyer, would advise you not to show any emotions, but come on, this guy, he looked like he's just made of stone. No emotions whatsoever. And the SWAT team, in fact, went in the wrong place in that building. They were looking for Chauncey Owens, who stayed in the flat on the top floor. These police officers, they did their surveillance and they knew that Chauncey Owens lived upstairs, but they've seen him once going upstairs through the lower floor front door where Aiyana lived. Either way, it does not justify their actions. It was no need for what they did. And if they did their surveillance, they must have known that there are children living there, They looked at the place, right? They were surveilling the place, so they must have known that at least Aiyana was living there, so they should have proceeded with much more caution than they actually did. An innocent 7-year-old child lost their life because some officers assumed that Owens would be there. And I think that that's just not right at all. There was no need to shoot, in my opinion. None whatsoever. Okay, so now going back to the trial. On the 29th of September, Weekley's lawyer asked for a mistrial because of the outburst of Mertilla, saying that the jury might be influenced by the emotions, but the judge actually denied the motion. However, the judge also mentioned that if Mertilla Jones or any other member of the family would have more outbursts, then she will declare a mistrial. So, on October the 3rd, the judge dismissed the involuntary manslaughter charge against Weekley, and on 10th of October, the judge declared a mistrial due to jury deadlock. At Weekley's retrial, it was disclosed that Mertilla's fingerprints were not found on Weekley's gun. So, Weekley's story fell apart because he said that a woman grabbed the gun from him. The only woman in that unit was Mertilla. Jeffrey Figure, the family's lawyer, said that the police fired the shot that struck Aiyana from outside the home, possibly through the open front door. So, this means that Joseph Weekley lied that Mertilla took the gun from him, and even so, with all of this, on January 28, 2015, County Prosecutor Kim Worthy dismissed the last remaining charge against him, the misdemeanor of careless discharge of a firearm causing death.
Did prosecutors poke a devastating hole in Officer Joseph Weekley's defense? Before prosecutors rested their case today, the jury heard key evidence that does not support the officer's claim that Aiyana's grandmother grabbed his MP5 submachine gun. 7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig was in the courtroom today. Kim, we're talking about fingerprints, or should we say lack of fingerprints, right?
That's right. And if Mertilla Jones had grabbed that submachine gun, as Officer Weekley says she did, you might expect her fingerprints to be on it, or maybe her DNA. But they weren't.
He just seemed like he was in a state of shock. He's confused, like, man, how could this happen? He asked me where I was, what did I see, what did I do? And then he said that when he went in, somebody, I don't remember the exact words, but snatched or grabbed his gun or some effect, something like that.
Detroit police officer Sean Stoller was right behind Officer Joseph Weekley when they raided the house on Lillibridge looking for a murder suspect. And just after the stun grenade came crashing through the front window, causing a distraction blast of sound and light, a bullet from Weekley's gun killed 7-year-old Aiyana Jones, who was sleeping on a couch right next to the front door. And today, prosecutors tried to attack Weekley's claim that he accidentally pulled the trigger because Aiyana's grandmother grabbed his gun.
Did you see anyone jump up when you're standing arms length away from them in the doorway?
I'm not looking that direction, so no.
Okay. Did you see anyone jump up and grab his weapon?
No.
Today, jurors left the courtroom for a demonstration of the stun or flash grenade. The final witness for the prosecution was the lead investigator into the deadly shooting of Aiyana. Here's Michigan State Police Detective Tawana Powell talking about Aiyana's grandmother.
Was Mertilla Jones ever charged with the crime of disarming a police officer or assaulting a police officer?
No. And when it comes to Officer Weekley's submachine gun, we're told forensic experts could not find any fingerprints on it. Not Mertilla Jones, not even fingerprints from Officer Weekley. Then there was the DNA.
There was no DNA recovered from the MP5 at all, correct?
Right.
Not even that Officer Weekley's, that Mertilla Jones, not anybody on earth. There was no DNA at all.
No.
Officer on trial. Could the jury deliver a verdict today? It's the case of Detroit officer Joseph Weekley. He's accused of accidentally shooting little Aiyana Stanley Jones during a raid. 7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig has been covering this trial from the beginning and has the latest on day 3 of deliberations.
Every jury has a tough job, but this case involves the death of a child and a veteran police officer. No doubt the jury listened carefully, and they're recalling the testimony of Officer Joseph Weekley. Weekley testified that Aiyana's grandmother hid his gun and that he had no idea there were children inside the house.
You had to literally step over that chair, didn't you, officer, to get to the front door?
The lawnmower's not there. The lawnmower was against the house.
Officer, I'm not asking about the lawnmower, I'm asking about the chair. In order to get to that front door, you had to step over that little child's chair, didn't you?
No, sir.
You did not.
No.
You didn't see that either, did you?
I never saw the chair. I never saw the chair. I saw the lawnmower, wasn't there.
What'd you tell the supervisors? Or what'd you tell other officers?
I was pretty messed up at that time, but I definitely either talked to Sergeant Collins or Sergeant Whitmer on the porch. I remember that. I was on the porch, and I'm like, lady jumped up and grabbed my gun, and I shot a kid.
And just, how did you feel at that moment?
I can't explain how I felt. Just, you feel devastated.
All around the courthouse here, family and friends of both Officer Weekley and Aiyana wait for the jury's verdict.
Joseph Weekley will not go to a third trial. Not only that, but on April the 2nd, 2015, nearly 5 years following the shooting of Aiyana Jones, Officer Weekley was returned to active duty as a Detroit police officer. The department decided to withdraw him from active duty shortly after the shooting on May 16, 2010. He was transferred from the Special Response Team to the Criminal Investigations Bureau. Police Chief James Craig stated, quote, "He will be in a limited duty capacity. He won't be in the field." Like, that helps a lot. He killed a child and he gets to go back to work? That's great. Mertilla Jones, Aiyana's grandmother, gets to go back to a house without her granddaughter in it. And I think it's just not fair. Is not fair, is not right. In September 2013, J. Cole released a music video dedicated to Aiyana Jones for his song Crooked Smile, featuring TLC on YouTube. Now, I can't add J. Cole's clip in my video due to, you know, copyright issues, but I will leave the link to the video in the description below. It's a very emotional music video and I have to say that it's hard to watch. In May 2016, Black Matters US held a small rally in memory of Aiyana Jones. Families of people killed by police officers and activists gathered at the feet of the Spirit of Detroit statue in front of the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center in Detroit. On July 20, 2016, Detroit police arrested 6 unknown individuals for chaining themselves to a precinct of the Detroit Police Department for their protest honoring Aiyana. The Detroit chapter of the Black Youth Project 100 or BYP 100 and Black Lives Matter Detroit organized the rally on what would have been Aiyana's 14th birthday. Protesters pleaded for the termination of Officer Weekley, as he had been selected to co-chair the Detroit Police Department's Committee on Race and Equality. Grandmother Mertilla Jones said, quote, "Accountability needs to be expected from cases like this because cops can't keep killing people and getting away with it." Chauncey Owens, who was the initial target of the raid that killed Aiyana Jones, was actually sentenced to life in prison without parole for the shooting of the 17-year-old teenager Jaron Blake in 2010. Owens initially entered the plea agreement to get a lesser sentence if he says who gave him the gun. But when he refused to give up a name, his plea was thrown out and he was ordered to trial. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy charged Charles Jones, the father of Aiyana Jones, with second-degree murder and perjury in Jaron Blake's death, largely based on the testimony of 2 jailhouse snitches which the late Judge Richard Scott tried unsuccessfully to bar. Charles Jones was sentenced to 40 to 60 years on the murder charge and 10 to 20 for perjury. On July the 9th, Charles Jones, his attorney Leon Weiss of the Figure Law Firm, and AP Mark Hindelang agreed to a plea deal for Jones in lieu of a new trial ordered by the Michigan Court of Appeal in April 2012. Charles Jones and his family welcomed the deal, in which he pled nolo contendere to manslaughter for a sentence of 10-20 years to be served concurrently with a perjury sentence. After sentencing on July 26, Charles Jones Charles Jones should have time served since 2011 applied to that sentence. His earliest release date would have been 2021, but his family hoped for time served according to his mother. I still find it unbelievable that Weekley is free after the death of Aiyana Jones. A one-man grand jury composed of then Chief Criminal Judge Timothy Kenny charged Weekley only with involuntary manslaughter and reckless use of a firearm. He walked free after 2 mistrials declared by Judge Cynthia Gray Hathaway, despite testimony from a firearms expert and others that his gun could not have discharged accidentally. During the years after the death of Aiyana Jones, the mainstream media has continued to claim that the child was killed accidentally. However, during one hearing in the Weekley trial, a Wayne County medical examiner testified that the reason for the lack of gunpowder stippling around Aiyana's gunshot wound could have been the result of a direct contact shot. She was shot within seconds of the time a flashbang explosive was tossed into the front window onto the couch where she was sleeping with her grandmother. Independent autopsy results showed that the bullet entered the top of the child's head. In the end, the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office later officially accepted this result. On the 2nd of May 2019, the city of Detroit reached an $8.25 million settlement with Aiyana Jones's family. Detroit Corporation Counsel Lawrence Garcia announced the settlement with the family of Aiyana Stanley Jones 4 days before a civil trial was to begin. Garcia said in a statement, quote, "Aiyana's death was a tragic loss for her family and has been a heavy burden on our community. We believe today's settlement is fair because it balances the needs of Aiyana's family and our responsibility for the city's finances. We hope this resolution will provide everyone involved a measure of closure," end of quote. Aiyana's family attorney, Jeffrey Figger, said the settlement should allow the family, the city, and Weekley to move on from the tragedy. He said the settlement won't provide full justice. The only full justice would be to bring Aiyana back, and he can't do that. And I have to say that unfortunately no amount of money will bring Aiyana Jones back. She died at the hands of Joseph Weekley, who is not paying for what he's done. That's why the family, in my opinion, will never get full closure. All the city of Detroit did was to put a price on a child's life. A life which is just priceless. Thank you guys so much for staying with me in today's video. Please do let me know what do you guys think in the comment section down below. For now, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!